This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. A Roman Catholic priest is behind bars tonight, accused of sexual assault on an 8-year-old girl. It allegedly happened Saturday in Little Grand Rapids, a remote First Nation in eastern Manitoba. We have to warn you, this report contains details you may find distressing. As CBC's Josh Crabb reports, the RCMP fears there could be more victims.
At a news conference in Winnipeg Tuesday, RCMP revealed the details of an alleged sexual assault on an 8-year-old girl. Superintendent Scott McMurchie says it happened at a church here in Little Grand Rapids, a remote First Nation in eastern Manitoba.
It was reported to us that this young girl from Little Grand Rapids First Nation was alone with the local Roman Catholic priest. She was helping him clean the church when he touched her inappropriately. She said and told our investigators that when she tried to leave, he forced her to remain in the building.
She eventually got out and went home. Arul Savari was arrested in Little Grand Rapids and remains in custody. He's been charged with multiple offenses, including sexual assault, sexual interference, sexual exploitation of a young person, luring a child, and forcible confinement. The Mounties say since Savari's arrest, additional youths connected to the church community have been identified as potential victims, and investigators fear there may be more beyond those who have already come forward.
We believe that other children may have been harmed in a similar way. We ask anyone with information or anyone who is a victim to contact the Little Grand Rapids RCMP.
McMurchie says Savari came to Canada from India 6 years ago and has served as a priest in Little Grand Rapids and nearby Pungassi First Nation. Officers say he had a home in Winnipeg and traveled to and from the communities. In a prepared statement, the Archdiocese of St. Boniface says it learned of the allegations against Savari Monday. The Archdiocese of St. Boniface expresses its deep sorrow to the victim who has come forward, as well as to that person's family and the entire community of Little Grand Rapids who have been affected by the allegations, the church says. The Archdiocese immediately suspended Father Arul Savari from all ministerial activity in the Archdiocese. Father Savari has been forbidden to have anything to do with former parishioners and children. Little Grand Rapids Chief Oliver Owen says the community is still learning the details of what happened. He says Savari has been taken out of the community and isn't welcome back. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A 22-year-old man was stabbed to death early this morning in Winnipeg's North End. Police were called to the area of Burroughs and Sauder for a report of an injured person just before 4 o'clock this morning. Westbound traffic on Burroughs was blocked between Sauder and Power for most of the morning. Police tape extended from outside an apartment block on Burroughs to a convenience store on Sauder and Alfred. Police are now asking anyone with information or video surveillance footage of the area to contact them or contact Crime Stoppers. Last year's violent crime numbers in Winnipeg were the highest they've been since 2009. That's according to the Winnipeg Police Service annual statistical report. It found assaults, homicides, and kidnappings were up 24% over 2021. 53 people were victims of homicide last year. That's a record. The number of crimes involving bear spray more than doubled. Property crime was also up more than 20%, and 1 in 5 crimes involved people violating their bail conditions. All other crimes saw a downward trend. Having a safe place to go can mean the difference between life and death, especially in extreme weather. A new motion at City Hall would give $1 million to agencies helping homeless people to access more 24/7 safe spaces. CBC's Cameron McLean reports it would also create a new system to alert those organizations during extreme weather.
I'm here on Langside Street in front of the Magnus Eliasson Recreation Center. This and Wellness House are the only 2 existing 24/7 safe spaces in the city. They're places where anybody can go any time of the day if they need shelter. Today at City Council, Mayor Scott Gillingham and Councillor John Orlico brought forward a motion to increase that number. The motion would offer grants of $275,000 each to Nadina-Waymak and St. Boniface Street Links to open their own safe spaces. It would also fund the creation of a new site in the Osborne Village area.
Ultimately, with these investments, it's like a ring of 24/7 safe spaces that are kind of just on the outside of the downtown that provide homeless individuals shelter and place to go.
This site here is operated by the Spence Neighbourhood Association and serves mainly youth. The motion would increase funding to the Spence Neighbourhood Association and Wellness House. I asked Spence Neighbourhood Association's Interim Executive Director, Michelle Wickerink, what the increased funding would mean.
It'll give us just a bit more space in our budget so we can staff our space fully each night. It will allow us to do more outreach in the middle of the night, especially when it's cold, actually being able to go out into the neighborhood rather than expecting youth to come to our building can save lives.
The funding includes $200,000 for agencies to find ways of attracting homeless people out of Winnipeg transit shelters and into safe spaces. The motion also calls for the city to create a new alert system for extreme hot and cold weather. It would designate a city building as a site for temporary overnight shelter in case of emergencies. The motion would also designate a city building as a temporary overnight shelter in case of emergencies. The motion will go before the Community Services Committee next month. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Modest, modern fashion is not always easy to find. That's why some Winnipeg women are now working to create more options. The CBC's Alana Cole explains.
Growing up, Hafsa Altaf says she was drawn to fashion and art for its ability to help people and build confidence. Now, as a designer, that's what drives her.
I want to help women and people find their voices, find their style, give them confidence to do what they want in life without compromising their beliefs. And that is what my brand does.
Her line, Fashion by Hafsa. Her focus, modest, modern fashion. She says that includes longer sleeves, more relaxed fit, and style options like pants or a long skirt. She hopes the line provides more selection for people who want to dress modestly, including Muslim women.
I think it's very difficult to find trendy modest wear or streetwear that still meets my values, like without compromising my values and a lot of other people's values too. So that is another reason why I did start my brand, is to able to give fun, creative options for people to represent themselves without wearing, traditional clothing.
She's not alone.
I decided to open this business because it's hard to find Muslim clothes. That's why I decided to open this kind of store.
Mariema Said was buying a lot of clothing online. It often didn't fit. She opened Abijata Marketplace.
Those are prayer mats.
She says her store sells casual outfits, hijabs, prayer dresses, and some men's and kids' clothing too.
People give me good comments. They are so happy.
So this piece over here, there's a girl wearing a hijab, and over here it says my right, my choice.
Altaf's fashion can be found online and on social media. She says it's for everyone.
So one example is some of our Islamic clothing. I found that a lot of non-Muslims wear it as well. And this just rings true to the multicultural and accepting society in Canada, which is incredible. Sometimes I also get messages from girls saying that they resonated with my clothing or art, and I was able to help them wear a hijab or move a different province to pursue their passion, and that's ultimately so satisfying and the reason why I do what I do.
And why she hopes to see more options in the future. Alana Cole, CBC News, Winnipeg.
More than 100 people were out around Pembina Highway earlier today searching for a missing 15-year-old boy. Enuka Gunatinalaka has been missing since last Wednesday. He was last seen after leaving Fort Richmond Collegiate after 8 a.m. He was seen on surveillance video near Pembina and Markham just before 9 that morning. Anna Radakaria-Vasam is part of the group searching. He says any tips could help narrow the search. He's asking anyone who drives in the area to check dash cameras because that footage is overwritten after 7 days.
We need the dash cam footage if someone passed between probably 8 and 10 on Pembina. So there's a chance that they have seen Inuka. So we want to know where he is. So, and also we have put posters everywhere, and we are looking for him along the Pembina and other directions. There's a lot of community members helping, and the whole community is devastated.
So again, it would be last Wednesday between 8 and 9 a.m. in the area of Fort Richmond Collegiate. Inika's 6 feet tall. He was wearing a blue hoodie and dark jeans. Anyone with information is asked to contact police. The justice system is cancelling court dates in southern Manitoba, but it says it's for a good reason, to save judges time. The CBC's Ian Fraze joins us now live from the newsroom. Ian, how can cancelling court dates be a good idea?
Well, they're saying the time of judges could be better spent elsewhere. Right now, judges go to small communities, from Gimli to Arborg to Emerson, and they hear everything. It could be the first appearance of an accused. It could be the delaying of a case to another date, or it could be a trial. The court system appears to be saying that this wide range of work is probably not the most efficient use of a judge's time. Chris Gamby is with the Criminal Defense Lawyers Association of Manitoba. He says the plan seems sensible.
We don't necessarily need a judge who is going to sit there and have to make some of these weighty, complicated decisions and apply legal reasoning, sitting, listening to remand after remand after remand. Their talents and training are better used elsewhere. I think that's what the provincial court is trying to do, and trying to better use the resources that they have to make sure that matters are moving through the system efficiently.
The NDP brought up these cancelled court dates in question period today. Chief Judge Margaret Wiebe told CBC in a statement that non-substantive matters will be dealt with through administrative processes. Wiebe did not explain what that could look like, but we know this already happens in Winnipeg. Some matters, like those remands, those delays, take place without a judge in the room. Janet.
Thanks for explaining this, Ian. The CBC's Ian Fraze live in our newsroom tonight. Well, it is that season again, and I don't mean spring. The City of Winnipeg's mosquito larviciding program began this month, and CBC's Cameron McLean headed out to check with one of the crews on the city's first line of defense against the biting critters.
After a heavy rain shower, Winnipeg's larviciding crews get to work. Today, they're treating a ditch in the Fort Garry neighbourhood. They use a simple process to find the mosquito larvae. They take a white cup on the end of a stick, scoop out some water, and take a look.
Mosquito larvae have a very distinct movement in the water. They do sort of like a squiggly, they're sometimes called wrigglers because they do wriggle around in the water body. They also have a siphon tube that helps them breathe at the surface of the water. Those are the key features.
The product they use to kill the larvae isn't a chemical, it's bacteria. Bacillus thermogenesis israelensis, or BTI.
It's specific to biting fly larvae, so mosquito larvae and certain midge larvae. And it only kills those organisms and leaves the other organisms.
David Wade of the Insect Control Branch says he can't predict what this year's mosquito season will be like. Given last year's below-average snowfall and relatively dry spring, he says we likely won't see much mosquito action in the next couple weeks.
But a lot can change, between now and all it takes is, a heavy 1 inch of rain and everything changes.
In Assiniboine Park, people are out enjoying the mostly mosquito-free space.
Yeah. I haven't found one yet.
I haven't either.
Nope. Yeah? So they're good. That's good.
That's good. That's good.
Dry season.
Yeah. Oh, we've been here probably for about an hour and a half, sitting out here at the leaf garden. Absolutely beautiful, and no mosquitoes.
How many mosquitoes have you found?
I've killed 2 so far, but I haven't found any more. So walking through the park, I haven't seen very many mosquitoes at all.
The city's larviciding program continues from now until September. Anytime it rains, crews will head out to check on standing water to look for potential mosquito breeding grounds. And if they find them, they'll spray again. Hopefully more people can enjoy walks around places like here at Assiniboine Park without getting eaten alive. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
And wouldn't it be wonderful if they could do so at dusk? That would be great. That's what we're aiming for. Well, from those persistent critters, mosquitoes, to something much larger. Wild turkeys have once again been spotted in Winnipeg. These rusty-banded game birds have been seen gobbling their way along front yards, boulevards, and streets. Jeff Martin, who lives in the Winnipeg neighbourhood Scotia Heights, called them unwanted solicitors at first, but as he told CBC's Jim Agapito, he's grown to love them.
I'm in the heart of Scotia Heights at the north end of Winnipeg, where some unwanted solicitors showed up, well, at the person's house behind us. To give you a little hint, that's the sound they'd make. Let's find out what happened.
I seen 2 unwanted turkeys soliciting my front door.
What was your reaction?
It was surprised to see turkeys around the neighborhood, for sure. I heard them in the morning coming down Scotia, past that White House. I sat here and had my coffee, and sooner or later they came walking up. I actually started to like them, even though they're unwanted at first, and I think maybe we should have them as a pet. So I used my phone and used some turkey calls, and I lured them almost into the backyard until my wife said, we can't have turkey pets.
Do you think, Jeff, that we could try and attract them with the same call you used?
Let's give it a shot.
It looks like we found the wild turkeys one street over from Jeff's place. They just appear to be chilling in the street. But I'm wondering, why are they coming to Winnipeg?
Turkeys have had an interesting history here in Manitoba. In the early 1900s, they were actually hunted to the point that they were extinct within Manitoba, so they were extirpated from the area, so they could not be found whatsoever. And then in the 60s, they were reintroduced, the species that were once here, they came back, and since then they've just really flourished, and as the human populations grow and urban areas expand into more rural areas, animals are starting to have to make home into the city. And turkeys were an animal that were hunted, so they want to move into the city so they will be safer from hunters. And they're a pretty flexible species because they don't have a lot of nesting requirements, and they're an opportunistic feeder, so they can really find their food anywhere because they'll just get what they can get. So they can really flourish in the city, which makes it really easy for them to settle into neighborhoods.
Do you think they would make tasty sandwiches?
I think they probably would.
Would you eat a wild turkey sandwich?
Of course I would. Who wouldn't? Why not? Yeah, for sure. Nobody's ever had wild turkey. I have.
I haven't. What is it like?
It's actually very good. If you put somebody in front of somebody a wild turkey and turkey, chances are they would know the difference.
No wild turkeys were heard in the making of that sandwich.
Exactly.
Just in case you were wondering. Yeah. From wild turkeys to the wild weather you've been following.
Yeah, even a tornado warning earlier just east of Beausejour, and this one was indicated on Doppler radar, so nobody saw anything pop down and touch the ground, thankfully. But yeah, it has been a wild day. Here's a look at the radar. We're going to start there because it is still pretty active south of Winnipeg and out to the east of Winnipeg, even to the southwest here, south of Portage la Prairie near Treehorn, Notre Dame de Lourdes, and that is a storm that continues to track down toward the Morden area. And Morden just had a thunderstorm go through. Not much in the Winnipeg area. South end of Winnipeg did see some rain earlier. The north side of Winnipeg did not, and we've got plenty of action out around Lac du Bonnet. So this, in just the last few seconds, that storm I was just showing you has popped up as a severe thunderstorm warning. The rest of the shaded area is a severe thunderstorm watch, and then on the Ontario side of the border, out through the Kenora region, we've got some severe thunderstorm warnings as well. Here's why. Kick up lightning tracker here and pull in the radar again, and you can see this group of storms out to the west of Winnipeg, around that area south of Portage, Treehorn, right along Highway number 2, and then down Highway 3 toward Morden and Winkler. This will be an active area for the next little while. You need to take cover if you're in the path of those storms. Nickel-sized hail or larger, wind gusts stronger than 90 kilometers per hour. We go out to the east and we can see that through the Whiteshell area, Rennie, and all the associated lakes to the north have been seeing some storm activity as well. So Big Whiteshell, Brereton, Jessica, Red Rock, all seeing those storms now moving across the border, and this line will move into the Kenora region before too long. So still plenty of action happening, even back to the west. Some isolated storms around the Turtle Mountain area. It's been an on and off situation in that area, Deb tells me, and then up toward Russell and Roblin, we're seeing some more lightning. Right now in Winnipeg, after a high today of 26, 22 degrees, southwest winds at 17. Storm energy today pretty active out to the east and across parts of southern Manitoba. So this is called CAPE, convective available potential energy. When you get the colors in the red, it's very high. Today was moderate or so. And then what I wanted to show you is how that storm energy is really gone tonight, and tomorrow it's a much quieter day. Most of that energy is out into the Ontario area. Futurecast proves that, shows that this is all moving away. It's a brighter day in Winnipeg tomorrow. Across the north, very quiet. May see an afternoon shower around the Brandon area, but on into the evening hours, that's pretty gone. And then in Thursday, we're looking at a sunny start to the day, and then again we see the formation of some showers and possibly storms in the afternoon and on through into the evening hours. And then Friday we're back into sunshine and some heat. The heat is going to pick up this week, so is the humidity as we get into Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. 16 in the morning, and then in the afternoon we're at 28. There's a slight chance of an evening shower here, but a lot of that is west of the Red River Valley and not much wind. So pretty warm day on the way for tomorrow. Same with Thursday, but we'll see some showers and afternoon storms. Sunny, humid, and hot on Friday, 30 degrees and 33 on Saturday. A chance of an overnight shower Saturday into Sunday, Janet. So yeah, pretty active, but tomorrow is a quieter day.
Glad to hear it. Thanks, John. We'll check in with you a little later.
Thank you.
Now, until December, the Manitoba Museum will host an exhibit of posters and photos from the Rainbow Resource Centre. It's a small display documenting huge efforts, how local members of the 2S LGBTQ+ community fought for equal rights over the past 50 years. I was at the museum today, midway through an interview with one of the curators of this exhibit, Ashley Smith, when a group of students from St. Mary's Academy peeked in and the exhibit worked its magic.
All of this is queer activism trying to change the laws, but many of these posters actually reflect how challenging it was to overcome the hearts and minds of the community. For example, Christine Barr in 1999, when she introduced anti-homophobia education into the school system, and the backlash she received from the community. A radio station called her horrible things and gave out her address and phone number, and people just went crazy on her. She stood against it and stood her ground, and it's the reason why we have anti-homophobia education in the school system, but also basically the reason why we have pride flags flying through schools now, and why we have books in the library now, like queer books in the library.
Do you guys want to come in? You can. So we see some students from St. Mary's Academy walking by and say, yeah, it's okay, come on in.
Do you know what this exhibit is? It celebrates 50 years of queer activism in Winnipeg. Amazing things happened here. Did you know that the term Two-Spirit was invented in Manitoba? Well, like invented, but like reintroduced to culture in Manitoba. So it tells the story of the fight for rights through the early 70s, when basically we had no rights, and through AIDS, when it was a matter of life and death. And then the first Pride, but then after the first Pride, when we still had to win adoption rights and marriage rights and protection against hate. And then after that, even with a sort of a celebratory time, but who are we kidding? It's not over, right?
And you find yourself in the middle of this educational opportunity with these young people. How did that feel for you?
That was great.
Right? See?
It is so important to make this exhibit an intergenerational experience. Young kids need to know, older kids need to share their experiences and listen to what the kids are asking and concerned about. But honestly,
it warms my heart because it's already working, just like I'd hoped. That's it.
Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you.
Alberta voters have given Danielle Smith and the United Conservative Party 4 more years in power. The story is coming up. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. Danielle Smith will remain the Premier of Alberta. Her United Conservative Party won a majority government in the election yesterday, although it is a smaller majority than her last one. CBC's Julia Wong has more.
There was disappointment in the room at the NDP headquarters in Edmonton after CBC News projected a UCP led by Danielle Smith will have a majority government. Now, Smith in Calgary thanked an energetic crowd, calling it a hard-fought campaign. Now attention turns to what the UCP plan to do with this mandate. Smith in the past has been supportive of a Alberta police force and a Alberta pension plan, so we'll have to see whether those things come to fruition. She also had this message to Albertans who did not cast a ballot for her.
I want you to know that my oath is to serve all Albertans, no matter how you voted. And though I didn't do enough in your judgment to win your support in this election, I will work every day to listen, to improve, and to demonstrate to you that I can be trusted to improve on the issues that you care so deeply about.
As for the Alberta NDP, well, it was both a good news and bad news story. The good news is they picked up a sizable number of seats in the legislature. The bad news, this was obviously not the outcome that they were looking for. This is the second straight election loss for Rachel Notley. So what happens to her now? Well, she's made it clear she's not going anywhere.
Honored to serve as your leader, and it is my privilege to continue to serve as leader of the official opposition. Our values will be represented in the legislature. We will have a say in the future of this great province.
So as you heard for Notley, well, it's just back to business. But the question lingers, how long will she be staying on as party leader? Strategists and supporters who we've talked to here, they say it's very much her choice, though some have said that they wouldn't mind a refresh of the party. It is important to note, though, that Notley is perhaps the most popular leader the NDP has ever had. So it begs the question, if Notley cannot win against the United Right, well, who can? Julia Wong, CBC News, Edmonton.
The Nova Scotia government has banned all activity in forests in response to raging wildfires. There are now 13 active fires across the province. 8 of those started yesterday, and 3 are now out of control. Officials say they will decide tomorrow morning if some people from evacuated areas are allowed to return to their homes. The CBC's Josh Hoffman has been talking with people who were forced to flee the Tantalin fire.
Lutz and Terry Kotwitz not only lost their home from the wildfire, but they also lost their business. Terry runs a daycare called Forest Kids Early Learning in Yankeetown. She says the kids and their parents are very special to her.
That's my life. They're my family.
Terry's purpose in life.
Yeah.
That's everything.
And to be able to provide for them is sad. But they're going to help us. We will rebuild. Not sure in the same text as what it was before.
Just down the street from the daycare was their home. They say they haven't received official word yet, but neighbors have told them it's gone too.
I've seen a picture now. We haven't seen it yet ourselves because we can't really go there yet. It's still closed.
Our house is flattened.
Many people who have been evacuated are staying at comfort centers that have been set up across Halifax. 80-year-old Jean Barber ended up at the Canada Game Centre with her dog Trudy after being forced to evacuate from the Voyager Lake area. She said all the volunteers at the comfort centre have been incredible, but Trudy hasn't been much help.
Last night it was cold. We spent the night in the car. The first night I was inside and Trudy was inside, but she was at the shelter for pets and she barked all night. So I thought that's not fair. So last night we went to the car. It was cold, but we snuggled together and made it through.
Josh Hoffman, CBC News, Halifax.
The NDP has introduced an opposition motion to remove David Johnston as the government's special rapporteur on foreign interference over perceived bias. This comes after Johnston recommended Ottawa not hold a public inquiry on the matter, but instead hold public hearings. As Rafi Boudjikanian reports, the federal government is digging in its heels for now.
The appearance of bias is so strong that the special rapporteur can no longer continue to do his work.
Until today, it was other opposition parties' accusations about David Johnston Justin Trudeau fended off.
David Johnston is an eminent Canadian who has served this government and this country for decades.
The Prime Minister knows that the appearance of bias is so strong in this case that Mr. Johnston cannot continue to do his work.
Last week, Johnston recommended against the public inquiry into allegations of foreign interference in Canadian elections, something all opposition parties want to see. Now the NDP says there are just too many questions about Johnston's ties to the Prime Minister for him to stay.
Their appointed rapporteur, David Johnston, does not
have the confidence of this House.
The opposition Conservatives never showed any faith in the process laid out by the Liberals, today urging the NDP to go further than the motion to oust Johnston.
We call on the NDP to set a condition that if there is no public inquiry, that the NDP will break the coalition and stand up for Canada and Canadians for once.
Pierre Poilievre is also refusing a recommendation by Johnston to read the same classified documents he did to reach his own conclusions, saying he'd then be unable to speak about what they say. This, though his predecessor explained he received his own briefing by Canada's spy agency over alleged meddling by China during his time as Conservative leader, insisting he can't go into detail, but he can speak.
Each of these threats were intended to discredit me, promote false narratives about my policies, and to severely obstruct my work as a member of Parliament and as leader of the official opposition.
Ultimately, Aaron O'Toole wants a parliamentary committee to investigate these threats. As for the NDP, their motion goes to a vote tomorrow. For now, Jagmeet Singh says he'd rather his party still have the leverage to pass legislation that matters to them about dental or pharmacare rather than push for an election. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
Scientists and developers are warning that the potential risks of artificial intelligence should be a global concern. That story is next. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. There's now another warning about artificial intelligence. This new one comes in the form of a statement from scientists and technology industry leaders, including executives at Microsoft and Google. Anisa Dari explains.
It's just one sentence, 22 words, warning about artificial intelligence. Mitigating the risk of extinction from AI should be a global priority alongside other societal scale risks, such as pandemics and nuclear war. The Center for AI Safety saying industry and politicians must prepare for the future before technology goes wrong.
Well, what do we have right now? We have companies locked in an AI arms race, and there aren't things like regulation. There aren't talks between heads of state about this sort of issue.
Some governments have said they don't want to repeat past mistakes, with calls from U.S. senators to compare to previous tech that wasn't regulated.
Congress failed to meet the moment on social media. Now we have the obligation to do it on AI before the threats and the risks become real.
Every technology has a light side and a dark side.
And in Canada, similar perspectives.
As bad as social media was, AI will be infinitely worse because the level of power, the level of impact, the level of fundamental change to humanity is significantly broader than social media ever will be.
And calls for a shift away from big tech experiments without oversight.
We should be moving from the mantra of move fast and break things, because that could break the world if we keep having that attitude as this scales across societies.
Scientists point out artificial intelligence can make decisions that humans can't always see, which means it's harder to control over time. So even though right now it could be as basic as deciding who gets a credit card and who doesn't, this is leading to deep concerns that without tighter oversight from government and industry, human intelligence could become extinct because of its artificial creation. Anisa Dari, CBC News, Calgary.
Toronto Blue Jays player Anthony Bass is under fire after the relief pitcher shared an anti-LGBTQ+ video on social media, endorsing a boycott of Target and Bud Light. Calls are growing for the team to trade or release Bass. He shared a video clip that called on Christians to avoid those brands. Part of the clip said, "We won't stand for it. We're not going to go to stores anymore, and we're not going to give them our money." He has since issued an apology. He did so before tonight's Jays game. The Jays issued a statement saying they are committed to providing an inclusive and welcoming experience for all, and that individual player sentiments are not representative of the club's beliefs. Okay, time to check back in with meteorologist John Sauder, who's tracking the rough weather tonight.
Yeah, you know, and my last weather segment, we had that severe thunderstorm warning pop up around Notre Dame de Lourdes and and down around Treeherne, heading toward Morden. That is still a warning, and I want to show you the radar right now. Now, this is a different looking radar. This is a sweeping radar, so when it goes from green to yellow, that's an increase in intensity of rainfall. The Woodlands radar is the one picking up this storm right here. The whiter color that you see underneath the lightning is a very intense rainfall here just north of Highway 3. So this is moving down toward Morden and Winkler. So Morden's right here, Winkler just at the south end of Highway number 3. So plenty of lightning here, large hail likely, and some very heavy rainfall rates as well. And of course, lightning is part of the threat. So this storm will continue to move east, southeast, easterly direction right across Highway 3 and continue to weaken as it moves down toward Altona in the next half hour or so. Temperatures right now, well, a little short of what we were earlier today. Now, I did forecast a high of 26. We got there and then turned around, went in the other direction. Steinbach's been getting some rain, so 18 right now around Steinbach and Kleefeld. Our downtown temperature in Winnipeg is at 21. Selkirk, you're at 24 degrees. Out to the west, 25s and 26s right now. Still some scattered storm activity in this part of the province. 19 in Morden and Winkler, where we're seeing some rain as well, and then that approaching storm. Pinawa, Lac du Bonnet has been a wild or a very active area today. So 17 degrees at the moment, and then a whole bunch of rain and thunderstorms now moving across the border into Ontario toward Kenora and Red Lake. Pretty quiet day across the north. Churchill's temperature at just 1 right now. It is 21 in Thompson, though, mid-20s. Up the western edge of the province, Norway House at 25 and Gillam at 9. There's a look at the cloud cover and all that activity out of a low that is in central Manitoba, and then this trough or cold front that is moving out into Ontario, kind of providing a little bit of lift for those storms. So some scattered evening showers and storms throughout northwestern Ontario. They will tend to clear in the overnight. We still have some evening showers, followed by clearing across most of the southeast, a low of 14 here in Winnipeg, and some scattered evening showers or storms out to the west, followed by clearing skies as well. Then across northern Manitoba, looks like this tonight, pretty quiet, a low of -1 in Churchill. Tomorrow, 8 degrees, mid-20s in the west, another 21 in Thompson, 19 in the Sunshine in Island Lake, and 22 with the sun cloud mix in Norway House. And it'll be a warm day here across the south, and again out to the southwest around Brandon, about a 30% chance of an afternoon shower or storm. The rest of us, not much of a chance at all, really. Lots of sunshine, temperatures mid to upper 20s, cooler in Gimli because the wind will be coming off the water. The water's still very cold. 26 in Kenora, 29 in Fort Francis tomorrow, 28 in Dryden, but some afternoon showers and storms in Red Lake tomorrow.
Thanks very much, John.
You're welcome.
Coming up, we'll hear about an information session for parents, grandparents, and caregivers about what safe social media looks like for kids and teens. What to do if you think it could be hurting them after the break. The Seven Oaks School Division teams up with the Mental Health Curriculum Resource Project 11 tonight to offer a safety and digital media information session for parents, grandparents, and caregivers. It runs from 7 to 8:30 at Maples Collegiate Commons. This afternoon, I spoke with a trauma-informed therapist who will be presenting at the event. Amy Rasmussen-Wallach, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Why did you feel an event like tonight's was necessary? Why is it needed?
So part of what we do at Project 11 is continually review our curriculum, the types of services and content we're offering to students across Manitoba from K to 12. And particularly post-pandemic, there's been growing concern around just really the breadth of digital media and social media safety. It's really shifted, in the last several years from not only looking at content online, but now, really exploring the duration and frequency of use with young people.
And what do you find when you look at how long kids are on social media every day and how they're doing mental health-wise?
Right. So there's been recent studies, and that's not what we do, but we're so grateful for the people who do the research and collect data on digital media use, not only social media, but looking at they're starting to make a lot of correlations and connections between specifically depression, anxiety, and low self-esteem. The higher the social media use is across age, across culture, with children and youth.
And as a trauma-informed therapist, what does that tell you?
Yeah, so it's really interesting looking at mental health impacts and the reasons that young people are choosing to spend so much time online, right? So often when there's an incessant need to use something outside of oneself to fulfill something inside, it really sheds light on some missing gaps, and missing needs. So that's what we're really interested in exploring with not only young people, but with teachers and parents, and looking at the quantity of use and what needs might be going unmet for young people.
Well, how do you do that, though? Because I imagine many teenagers might not want to share their social media platforms or what they're seeing, what they're reading with their caregivers, parents, grandparents. Right.
So tonight, one of the things we're going to be doing with parents is really setting up, because there is no one answer, one size fits all model for attending to something so complex. Really forming a template or a pathway that parents and teachers can follow to not only assess kind of the level of harm or risk that they're concerned about with their child, but also pairing that with the developmental age and exploring really what social media, digital media might be replacing, depending on where that child is in development. And by doing kind of that assessment process, really being able to develop a supportive intervention plan that can be more meaningful than just trying to create limits that are imposed.
I know that there's no one-size-fits-all solution. You've told us that. Every child is different, every situation's different. But just, is there a rule of thumb when you'd say absolutely not, a child is too young for social media at X age?
Right. So the only thing the research is pointing to is a recommendation for no screens under the age of 2. But beyond that, there's not a lot of very concrete recommendations for use. It really comes down to the impact, the risk, and the level of harm that's been experiencing for that particular child.
Oh my goodness, but 2 years old. I mean, you can see why parents or grandparents might be looking for some sort of guidelines and help if the research says, that's the research we have. No screen time under 2, but, from 12 on, you're on your own.
Yeah. So we're really shifting towards, I think, as a society, away from recommended screen time use and looking at a harm reduction way of attending to these really complex issues, because digital media is a part of our world and will continue to be a part of our world. So we hope that children and youth can intrinsically check in and know and set some boundaries around that. But when we can't, that's what we're going to be talking to parents about, is how to create that with your child. And if you can't do that with your child, really what works for that family, understanding, who the child is in relationship with when using those digital media platforms.
Amy Rasmussen-Wallach, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
John's 7-day forecast and your daily lift are still to come. Stay with us.
So a few minor changes to the watches and warnings, and this will happen as the storms progress. The watch is now over out to the farther east area, but south of Winnipeg, there's still a severe thunderstorm watch. And this is a warning because of this storm that's just bearing down on the town of Morden, going through Manitou right now. Plenty of lightning, hail, heavy rain. It's all moving through in the next little while, and then that will dissipate through into the evening hours. Could see some fog overnight into tomorrow morning. More showers, storms possible on Thursday afternoon. Friday, 30 degrees, sunny and humid, and then still humid as we head into the weekend, and a high of 33 on Saturday, 32 on Sunday, and still warm into early next week. You know, Janet, it's been a while since we've seen a panda, since one was sighted on this newscast. Luckily, there was a very rare sighting in China recently.
Really?
Yes.
Yes. Luckily, this very rare sighting, a surveillance camera recorded the movement of an all-white giant panda. Here's your daily lift. Wow!
Ooh.
It's thought to be an albino, the only one of its kind in the world. Little lonely. The panda can be seen on a nature reserve going about its business, interacting with friends and acquaintances, including a mother and her cubs, so that's good, not being shunned. Researchers believe the panda is around 5 or 6 years old, first spotted more than 4 years ago. Kind of cool looking. You'd never know, would you, that was a giant panda?
Yeah, it looks like a shape of a panda.
It does.
The head looks like a panda, but it's all white.
Kind of browny.
Yeah.
Still cute.
Off-white.
Have a lovely evening.
See ya.